Well, once again, after a few weeks of a lot of tumultuous events, we're at the tail end of summer, and the weather is just wonderful here in New York City. Without all this humidity, I can't smell all the garbage that our worthless mayor doesn't pick up on time.
I thought you were going to turn happy for a moment, but no, it's tied to...
Well, I can never be happy about what I've seen done to this great city, a global capital. It's a disgrace. I was walking across the street the other day, Stuart, on my way back from lunch. I was in Midtown, and there's some guy sprawled out on the sidewalk, just obviously drugged out. No one does anything. People just walk by him. Where are the cops? Where's the mayor? I'll tell you where the mayor is. He's probably off at some nightclub at 3 a.m., doing a tranny hooker in the bathroom. As I've suggested before, he's a repulsive, unacceptable...
But it's a very difficult problem. You get in a druggie or someone who's committed a minor crime, they get turned in. They get either the courts will, dismiss the warrant, or they'll go to Bellevue for a night and they're out on the streets the next day. We don't have a proper system for...
No, and we do not have...
Compelling the, not imprisonment, but the restraint of people in a building until they're of no harm to themselves or others on the street.
Well,
we don't have a system anymore.
We don't, and we also have one of the worst prosecutors in America, in Manhattan at least, by the name of Fat Alvin Bragg, who claimed to be poverty-stricken, yet went to Harvard, double dipper, Harvard Law, Harvard undergrad, Trinity, prep school, lived in a mansion in Harlem, and he's fat. And he was very vigorous about not pursuing common criminals and letting them loose, particularly the BLM rioters. Yet he spent a lot of money and resources on Donald Trump. And we know that case is going to get thrown out eventually. It was a fraud, just like Alvin Bragg in his whole phony narrative about his upbringing. But on a positive note, see, they're off some positive. There are some prosecutors or district attorneys in the New York City area and Brooklyn and Queens, Eric Gonzalez and Melinda Katz, one from Brooklyn, one from Queens, who have done things that you admire, which you expect a prosecutor to do besides sitting down for a big lunch at the university club pontificating about all the people he's going to let out of jail, like Fat Alvin Bragg.
Let me tell you about a situation that I think is worthy of attention. And these guys... Let's say Eric Gonzalez in 2014, when he got into office, and Melinda Katz a few years later, both came to the conclusion that they ought to have a review of certain convictions. We as a society don't want wrongful convictions. We don't want people sitting in jail who didn't commit the act. That may be a very hard thing to get to point zero on, but we need to do everything to keep that to some minimum. And they set up conviction integrity units to review certain cases. And this issue came to mind again to me the other day when on August 9, just last week, a guy named Darvell Marshall, who had spent 16 years in prison, his conviction was overturned in Brooklyn. And that's because of the conviction integrity unit in Brooklyn. And the reason was that they came across, there had been a video that was available, but perhaps not easily transmittable. I'm not sure of the circumstances there, but there had been a video which demonstrated this fellow's innocence because it demonstrated the culpability of other people. And that never came to light until recently in court. And on the basis of that, his conviction was immediately overturned. Now, of course, in this case, there will be no further trial since his innocence was demonstrated. In other cases, it could be an overturned conviction because of perhaps a failure to defend someone adequately under the Sixth Amendment and that kind of stuff. But so he and Gonzalez in Brooklyn has turned over, I don't know how many cases, 39 convictions have been overturned since 2014. But again, a calm policy review to see whether there has been justice done or not. We owe that to society. The other case, the other situation in Queens is similar. Melinda Katz, has had this process in place for a while. And her movement was triggered principally by a fellow named James Donovan. He was a detective, and he was eventually convicted of perjuring himself. he admitted to same, perjuring himself at a trial. Well, once he was a convicted perjurer, Melinda Katz came to the conclusion that she had to come to that his testimony was, he became, well, in cases in which he had been what she called an essential witness, his testimony was useless and probably of negative quality because, in her view, he had irreparably impaired his credibility. I think you have to see that when you say he's an admitted perjurer and he's convicted of same. And so on the basis of that, she has had a number of 46 other convictions in which he was involved, and I'm sure they've been overturned already, or another trial that being held the decision made as to whether to have further trials in those cases. But here are people who are trying to do the right thing, not attacking the prosecution, not attacking cops on the beat, but they are saying you have to give people a fair trial. And even if you think that you got a bum who's committed some 40 or 50 other crimes and you want to get him on this one, if he didn't do this one, you can't perjure yourself, and you have to hand over documents and other things to defense counsel to allow them to move forward in the defense. One other point, nothing in either Queens or Brooklyn has yet risen to the level of a prosecution for prosecutorial malfeasance, a failure to prosecute properly. These are cases I just described where, well, one of them where the prosecutor didn't turn over relevant evidence, but I haven't seen one rise yet to the level of let's prosecute the prosecutor. And I want to know what you think about all this stuff.
Well, not every prosecutor is like Elliot Spitzer and Rudolph Giuliani, two people who made grandstanding cases against people, all of which got thrown out of court later because the two of them were using their office to get themselves to higher office. Both of them had spectacular failures. I mean, we just saw Giuliani stumbling drunk at the Republican convention. He's bankrupt. He's a buffoon. He was a terrible mayor. This joke that he was a good mayor and America's mayor, he lied to every New Yorker about the pollution down at Ground Zero. He is a scumbag, and nothing was better for the city when we got rid of him. He had 4 good years, his first 4 years, and he let it get to his head. He fired one of the most effective police commissioners we ever had because he was jealous of him. He was cross-dressing like Marilyn Monroe. He divorced his wife on camera without even telling her or announcing his divorce. And now he's been Trump's lackey. And what has it gotten him? Disbarred, bankrupt, ruined, drunk, loser. And I have nothing revolted me more than Rudy Giuliani and the false narrative that he was a good mayor because he was not. He was one of the worst. You give him
any credit for what he did. Right?
What did he do?
I mean, after the attack on the...
No, he didn't do anything. He was hiding in a bunker. He was a loser. And he's a coward. And he's a disgrace. And he's a criminal. He will be soon convicted for crimes. And Elliot Spitzer is no better. He was going to be a steamroller as a governor. He got steamrolled, all right out of office when he got caught dealing with hookers. Now, these people are these people are far different, of course, because they have some integrity. But you know what? People like this don't go far in Democrat New York City politics. Who does go far? Kathy Hochul, a moron. And Alvin Bragg, I don't hear how many people talk about how smart he is, how great he is. He is a disaster for the city. He's a disaster for law enforcement. He is an enemy of the people, and he is fat. and his prosecution of Trump, well, as I've said before, was merely an attempt by him to boost his standing within the liberal New York City environment and the state where Trump is hated. And he brought this case, and it doesn't seem like it's really going to last. But we'll see how it all plays out.
I have one question for you about obesity. I take it you don't believe obesity should be a protected class, obese people.
No. Why should it be protected? Because you don't have any self-discipline. I mean, there are people who struggle with weight and weight loss and
whatnot. Some of that category have a medical issue.
Yeah. And for that, I guess you're right.
Small category.
I think most of these people, the reason why America has become so obese is, one, we have a food industry that is so unhealthy and disgusting and shovels all this garbage into people. And there have been documentaries about it. I mean, as I mentioned to you last time, I was in Spain and I ate normal amounts of food. It was healthy. It wasn't filled with preservatives. I actually lost weight on vacation and I didn't even exercise. I just walked around. When you're here in America, we are being filled with toxins and we don't do anything about it. Yet it's so important that we have electric cars. Meanwhile, the food industry is poisoning us, making us fat, unhealthy, addicting us to all kinds of medications like cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, etc. Where do you think it's all coming from? I mean, but at the end,
a lot of choice involved, and it's a lack of restraint.
That too. And, but back to your story about the prosecutors, these two should be admired.
I agree.
And, there's nothing worse, in my opinion, than people who make allegations against others for political purposes that aren't really justified. And this gets me to something that has been under my skin since the 90s. This is the feminist movement in America, and this whole notion of toxic masculinity, and that if you are male, you are not allowed to be masculine because it's toxic. And how horrible this all came to fruition when Trump was elected president. And all of a sudden, all these people found religion and they went down to Washington, D.C. after he was inaugurated, wearing pussy hats in reference to his comment that he made. And they were all, rabidly angry. Madonna, the material girl, she stood up in front of all these demonstrators and said that she wanted to blow up the White House. Now, I don't think she has the right to talk about blowing up the people's house, because the White House, Trump may have been in it. That is a historic home. It has a lot of significance. And for her, in her arrogance and ignorance, because she was angry about Donald Trump, to say such a thing is repulsive. And it completely undermines the whole feminist movement when she does that, because there are feminists who may have legitimate concerns and grievances, but it's not the pussy marchers. They were there to grandstand, because when Donald Trump has been Donald Trump since a long time ago, and people like Madonna, the Democrats, reptile Senator Chuck Schumer, the Clintons, all of them, they were all friends with him. They were all hanging out with him. There was nothing wrong with him. And, I think it's absolutely disgraceful. And let's get back to the 90s. We had a president of the United States who reputedly was a philanderer and an adulterer. We knew that before he was elected. And we also know that his wife, the quote-unquote strong-willed independent woman feminist, put up with all of this. But what we didn't know, it was bad enough that he was an adultering, draft-dodging, yellow-bellied, pot-smoking loser, and a liar, a coward, and a socialist, and a lousy president as well. And I think you know who I'm getting to. His name is Slick Willie Clinton. He was caught having a sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky, who was a 24-year-old intern. Just the power dynamics of that relationship alone in the Oval Office should be enough to send anyone off into a frenzy. But it did send off the feminists. They defended him. They did not ask for him to resign or to get out of office, as they would if Donald Trump did something like that. They went wild over Clarence Thomas because he supposedly had lewd conversations with Anita Hill about pubic hairs on a Coke can and a porn star. He never touched Anita Hill, per her own testimony, assuming she was telling the truth. And the feminist movement went crazy. They wanted him gone. And they have not shut up about Clarence Thomas ever since. They've been unsuccessful. But isn't that a little hypocritical? And there's more. At least Anita Hill, you could say she was credible. Dr. Blasey Ford. She accused Brett Kavanaugh of pinning her down on a bed when he was 18 years old at some high school party. Never sexually did anything with her other than making her uncomfortable, assuming it's true. Yet she couldn't say where it happened, who else was there, or any details. And she only came forward with this story when he was nominated to the Supreme Court, not when he was nominated to the U.S. Court of Appeals, because she is a die-hard liberal Democrat. She was looking to sabotage his nomination. And frankly, what someone does at 18 years old is a little different from what someone does as an adult. Bill Clinton was an adult when he assaulted Monica Lewinsky. He was not only he was an adult and a governor when he sexually harassed Paula Jones. He was also an adult and a president when he apparently groped and assaulted Catherine Willey, and when she was a widow. And then he also, apparently, when he was the governor of Arkansas, he raped Juanita Broderick. And no one has disputed her testimony, except the feminists and all the people who defended Bill Clinton, including the feminist icon, Gloria Steinhem. She has never apologized, that I know of, for the fact that she defended a guy who was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane over 50 times. And what was he doing with Jeffrey Epstein? Do you think they were talking about global affairs, or was Epstein procuring young women for him to satisfy his deviant needs? And who has remained married to the scumbag for her entire life, for her political benefit and opportunity, was Hillary Clinton. So when she ran for president, calling herself a feminist, no one took that seriously, because anyone who was a feminist and a strong, independent woman wouldn't put up with a sexually harassing rapist who was disbarred for perjury. That's Bill Clinton. And no one said a word about it. Yet Donald Trump is like public enemy number one. And I know, Stuart, you mentioned to me a while ago how some of you and your Vietnam veterans put a picture of Jane Fonda above the urinal when you get together as a matter of respect. You know who should be there right with them? Gloria Steinhem. Because she is a hypocritical fraud. She is not a feminist.
She might merit another urinal in some other place, but this one is reserved only
for Jane Fonda.
Vietnam. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe the Port Authority bathroom. I think that would be a good place for her, because I have never in my life seen such hypocrisy in my life. And frankly, I don't believe that a lot of these people use sexual harassment as a cudgel against those they don't like. They don't do it as a serious matter. And, you know, what else can we expect? And another annoying aspect of all this latest thing about all of a sudden, you know, we've got to put Harvey Weinstein in jail, even though he had Hillary on speed dial and was raising money for her for years and years. They were good friends, and don't think anyone didn't know what he was doing, because they did. They just all of a sudden found religion. But in the entertainment industry, Stuart, we have now had a feminization of you know, casting and roles. Like, for example, I recently saw on Broadway The Outsiders, the musical. It was a coming of age, based on the coming of age story from the 60s about two warring group of teenage boys. This is a coming of age story about boys, okay? It's not about women. Yet, when they cast the play, some of the minor roles of the gang members were played by women. Male roles played by women. There was no need for this. It was so distracting, so outrageous, so ridiculous. And who does the entertainment industry think they are kidding with these symbolic gestures? They are part of an institution that has degraded one woman after the next for the sexually exploited them and the rest. Look what they've done back for years. And now all of a sudden, we're going to make up for it by casting male roles by females. How does that do anything? That is like taking The Color Purple and having Asians play all the role. It's absurd.
I agree that we, it's become the norm to place one sex in another role than their original sex by birth, and that it goes on and on.
it's unacceptable and it's silly. It's meaningless, and it was distracting. Although the play, despite that, was excellent. It was very well done. I mean, Angelina Jolie was one of the producers, and even though I despise that home-wrecking slut, it's a very good show, and I would recommend it. But who are they kidding me? I mean, we've all heard about the casting couch, and they can't compensate for what they've done over the years. And I do find it also funny. We've got to overcompensate for our long history of sexism in the entertainment industry, yet when it comes to playing my people, the Italian Americans, how are we portrayed? We are portrayed as sausage-eating, vulgar murderers in this organization called the Mafia, where we have gumads and we kill each other and all that stuff. You know what?
I dispute that.
I do dispute it heavily. The Italians brought about the Renaissance, Stuart. They are the height of fashion, style, architecture, in every way. The Mafia is not what Americans are about. My family was very well educated. They went to very good schools. We were not sitting around in some sausage factory cutting up a coke dealer, as portrayed by the Hollywood frauds, okay? And it's a disgrace. And I will say I did enjoy watching The Sopranos myself, but it leaves a bad taste in my mouth to see my people being portrayed like that, because from what I know, the Italians are very cultured people. They are not the way they're portrayed by Americans in the Hollywood garbage heap that we come from.
No, it's not a question of having one or the other. One can have both, the very cultured background, but there's another element of the population that was criminal. And that makes for good movies, and that makes for good press, and Godfathers, it makes for good stuff. And there were families.
Yeah, the Mafia does exist, or the criminal enterprise exists, but that's all they ever show. They don't show movies about Italian culture and Italian, except they did have that movie about, I think it was like The House of Gucci, where once again they had the Italians, the actual Italians, the Gucci family, portrayed as like these buffoons. And I don't think that the family was...
They do what sells.
Well, you know what? I don't think it's racism sells, then they should all be stopped. They should be banned, because they are portraying my people in a racist manner. And I will not... If we can...
Freedom of speech.
No, it's not freedom of speech. If we cannot...
Make your own movie.
Why is it so sensitive when we have movies about black people and we can't portray them in a negative light, but you can portray...
That's a problem. We do people get abused for saying truthful things about black people.
And not to say there are a lot of negative things to say about black people, because I don't think there really are. A matter of fact, unlike liberals who condescend to people of race, I don't. I think there's a lot of good things from African-American society. And I also think that, despite Obama, what you might say about him, he was a very inspirational person, and he broke through a barrier. And
Absolutely.
I respect him greatly, as I do his wife. A lot of people don't like her either. But I think it's fair, and I don't think he should be pillared. I mean, yes, he was a very liberal president, and he didn't do a good job, but as a person, I think he's a very admirable person. But a lot of people in Hollywood, they're all a bunch of frauds. And you know what? They're disgusting people. I hate them. And where do they all go to summer? Oh, I'll tell you where, Stuart. My favorite place of all time. They go, a lot of them, with all their other nouveau riche, gauche, vulgar people, to the Hamptons. And they can sit around and eat their $80 chicken salad and pretend like they think they're the second coming of Christ.
Well, let me tell you, they've got a serious problem on their hands. Those folks who are visiting the Hamptons these days. I read about it just today in the Post. And the problem is this, that they don't have decent cell phone service now. To them, this is a catastrophe. And so what are they going to do about it? Well, there are these boosters that have traditionally been used by truck drivers, and you can see a little antenna on the cab of their trucks. that allows them to be the cell service available in the area. Now, of course, the problem for the Hamptonites is, and those with the pretty cars, the expensive breed of cars, is that this antenna has to go on the top of the car, and it's got to be the wire that extends from the antenna has to go through either around the window on the side of the car or through the top of the car. And then once it goes through the top of the car, it's attached to a little thing that's about the size of an iPhone, apparently, that sits either on the floor of the back seat or on the seat. Well, these people are very troubled, about what they've got to make this choice. Do they want good cell service, or do they want to maintain the purity and value of their expensive cars? I'm troubled by this.
I could see how you would be, and it really is unfortunate that when you go to a place to vacation, just so you can tell people you went there and not really enjoy it, and then want to have cell phone service, what do you need the cell phone service? And who wants to talk to them anyway? I would strongly urge them not to do that to their cars, because the least communication I have with people like that, the better.
Well, the reason this problem exists is because of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. They have refused to let cell towers go up. Well, if you don't have cell towers, I guess you don't have good cell tower service. So this is a self-inflicted problem, but it's probably causing, use of psychologists and shrinks to rise in the Hamptons.
Well, I don't know how many shrinks can help the type of people who go there in the summer, because I think they're pretty much unhelpable. The whole thing is a joke. It's Long Island. This is not Saint-Tropez. This is not the Amalfi Coast. It is Long Island. Excuse me, Long Island.
Long Island.
Long Island. Excuse me, Stuart.
I grew up there. I know how to do that. Long Island.
Thank you for schooling me. I did not grow up in. And I don't need to go.
I got to interrupt.
Okay.
Have we got 2 minutes?
Wait, go ahead, Stuart.
So I was chatting online, emailing with a Vietnam vet friend of mine, a wonderful fellow, Al Smith, a platoon leader in Vietnam and just a very good man. And he has written a book and had it published, and it's called something like People Who, how is it phrased? People Who Get It and Those Who Don't, and What You Can Learn from Those Who Don't. And it's a shorter version of the title than that. But in it, he has a biography that introduces himself to the people who read the book, because he wants them to know the spot from which he comes, his background. And one of the things he said in his background is that he grew up in part in Long Beach, New York. I grew up in Long Beach in part. And it was cute as we exchanged emails saying that we must have been in the same grade school at the same time. It's cute. It's not an important thing, but it's just a cute little anecdote.
Stuart, being that you are from Long Island, how come you aren't in the Hamptons wearing a Speedo?
A Speedo. There are a number of reasons why I wouldn't be in a Speedo. I don't think we need to list them all.
Well, that was a little bit of a joke. But how come you're not out in the Hamptons getting your $80 chicken salads?
I'd prefer not to, though. I have one friend and his wife who live there, and I'll visit them. We're in their home when I go there, and they've got some medical issues involved. But I'm certainly not the type to be hanging out in the Hamptons a lot. And
I'm rather stunned in light of your flashy lifestyle here that I've noticed. Well, listen, I have always had these places where people go on vacation in the summer, like Martha's Vineyard and all that. They always annoy me. They annoy me because they are filled with the people I hate most. Left-wing, foolish hypocrites. Although in the Hamptons, I think there are some Republicans. In Martha's Vineyard, it is the Kennedys and all those scumbags, and they sit around and talk to each other and condescend to the rest of America, and pretty much explains why they are hated nationally.
Sometime in the next session or one soon thereafter, I'd love to hear your reflections upon the other Kennedy running for the presidency.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
Some, not now.
No, I think we're kind of running out of time, and I could go on a long diatribe.
And the discovery of the bear in the park.
That is so strange.
I think so. Let's cover it another day.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. And, you know, the good news is, Stuart, my cell phone is working perfectly here in New York City. Nothing else works here perfectly, but my cell phone does. All right, so we'll touch base again for another round, and we'll be back.
Take care.